So hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. Here we are looking at Assetto Corsa, and I'm going to be revisiting the special events page. Another YouTube subscriber, I hope he's a subscriber anyway, Glenn Hayes, has had a brilliant conversation over the past couple of days regarding one of the special events. If I just come in here, if we just come down to this special event down the bottom here, you'll see that it hasn't actually saved the lap that I did yesterday, and I don't know if this is a glitch since we changed, because back when all these special events first came out, I think we were back on version 1.6.5, and I think because there's been a change in the version of the game since then, I don't think it's been recording fastest laps because we've moved to 1.7.2, but as you can see down there, I set a 142.033. I can't highlight it, but I did set a 141.9 yesterday, and the only reason I'm sort of revisiting this, because since the change from 1.6.5 to 1.7.2, I really did feel that because the cars handle so differently, I didn't particularly think I would be able to get near the same lap time that I'd previously set. And when I initially started having a go at the special event again, after talking with Glenn, I was only able to hit a 142.3. Although obviously nailing the lap is very much it's a tricky lap going through the chicane, especially going through the chicane. It feels like hit and miss sometimes. Sometimes you get through, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get through some of the other areas, sometimes it bounces you off the curbs. But we'll have a look at that again in a little bit of in a minute. But one thing I did want to look at, and this comes back to one of my previous videos talking to Lawrence Juiced, after he'd pointed me in the direction of Aris's channel and a video that he'd produced regarding force feedback and a lot of other things. And I think initially I watched a good portion of the video. I think it's about an hour long, and I know Aris does enjoy making a lengthy video, but I think I'd watched about 20 minutes of it, and I really needed to watch the full video really. But what he goes into is in the options menu and on the wheel itself. Obviously I'm using the Fanatec 2.5 base along with the McLaren GT3 wheel, and he's suggested in here to try and set the wheel at its maximum. So I've currently got the wheel set at 200%, although it's 100%. There's only ever 100%, isn't there? So it's set at 200, which is 100% of the wheel's capacity. And initially I had gain set at 85 and I had the wheel set at 140. So I reduced the gain all the way down to 50. I turned the wheel up to 200. I also had my dynamic damping, I think, down at 40%. Or 50%, something like that. And the road effects, I think I had road effects at 5%. So I increased all these up to 100%, not quite knowing previously what dynamic damping actually does. And one of the other aspects of the wheel in the settings is the drift mode on the 2.5 base, and probably a lot of the other bases that are Fanatec. But you can reduce the damping of the wheel using the drift mode, and I've now got that set to -3. So what this does is, while you're driving along the straight, sometimes if you let go of the wheel and you would just touch the wheel, it would oscillate and then it would go crazy and just spin the car off the circuit. So by watching the video, I got more of an understanding as to what this needed to be set at. So the dynamic damping actually, it stops that from happening. It reduces its effect. But obviously if you start adding too much dynamic damping, it'll stop the wheel from rotating left and right quickly, especially when you want to go through chicanes and such. So we'll have a little look at it once we get in the car and have a drive round. But just by increasing this, I've just got a lot more feeling through the wheel. I've got a lot more fine detail through the wheel, which is, I think, has been a lot more beneficial. But I think this is going to be something that I'll adjust as I'm learning more about it through each car. So as I change the steering lock, as I get in another car, I'll put these back to 50 on the gain, dynamic damping. I'll probably leave it at 150 because I can't see that being different, but I'll just change the gain for each of the cars, because they do have different caster angles, which does make a difference to the weight of the wheel. Especially cars like the McLaren has a very low caster angle, which generally feels quite light through the wheel. So there's definitely so much more gain to be able to play with to increase that detail through the wheel. But just something I thought I would cover in this video is maybe if you have got, I'd say one of the more expensive wheels really, if it's not a Logitech or a Thrustmaster and you are using something like a Fanatec on console, you have got the option of a lot more power coming through the wheel itself, and some of these settings do make a lot of difference. I'm not quite brushed up on all the settings that you would need for the Logitechs and the Thrustmasters, and I know some people are still having issues moving around this menu. You cannot just keep coming down in this center section of the menu. It just doesn't work like that. I can't move left at the moment. I can only move right at this point, and then you have to come down and move across to be able to actually save a preset. And when we're setting up all these options and I'm renaming my new setup, you've got to move around the menu like this. It's got to be up and down through this section, then you've got to come across. And I would suggest if you're new to the game, the right bumper and left bumper always come as look left, look right. So you need to change those for your shift up and down. And the other buttons that I generally use, cycle my camera. I've not got that many buttons on my wheel, so I do look left and right, change the display, and traction control. I'll assign these. Currently in the Mercedes that I'm driving, I use traction control 4, and coming off the corners, sometimes to reduce the amount of input that the traction control has, I'll switch between 1 and 4 quite quickly. So I have these set on my wheel so I can just change them really quickly. You still can't assign buttons to the keyboard. I have got a keyboard alongside me that I do use, and there are keys on the keyboard that are functioning through Xbox, but there aren't many, and they aren't the same as what they used to be when the game launched. Obviously you still can't change the field of view, you can't change your seating position still. Hopefully these are things that are going to come once we get full optimization for the new console. And hopefully in the next patch, it's got to be something that will arrive even on the standard Xbox. It really should be in the game. It's obviously, it was available initially, so it is something that is achievable. So I don't see why we're not seeing that back on console. So coming back to these setups, you must save the setup within this menu and then load it. It's so important, or it just doesn't carry over. So when you come into this menu, you need to be choosing the steering wheel, then you need to be changing all these settings. You need to come across to the right hand side, back down, you need to click on that, you need to type in what you want to call it, and you need to save it, and then you need to come across to the menu and load it. So clicking on the button and press load, and that brings everything in. As you can see, I'd changed that there. So if I come back up here, I had that set at 60 and I had this set at 150, and I think I just dropped the road effects down to 40. So I need to come down. I've got my my name that I was calling it, and I'm going to save that. So save over it, come down, and I must load it, or when I exit the screen and I come back in, it won't have changed. It won't save those values without loading it. So hopefully that's cleared a few things up and you can start playing around. And I am going to change these, like I said, for every car, and I'll go down the bottom here down to my presets and I'll change them. I've only done the Porsche and the Mercedes for now, but I just thought I'd cover that in this video. One of the other things, obviously, assists. These are the other things that I have set to automatic and things that I have set to manual, and I'll change those in the heads-up display or the MFD that comes up. But we're just going to have a little look at this event for now, and I'll show you my fastest lap that I was able to set using the setup that I'm going to use in here, and we'll just have a little walk through the setup that I'm using. As you can see there, using version, I always like to name it 172 because it's the version of the game, and it was set at a 141.9. So we'll load that setup in, and I'll just make a tiny tweak on all these tyre pressures. I just wanted to up them 3 psi each, and I'll just talk through that. Initially, when you start the lap on a hot lap, as soon as you drive over the start-finish line, it sets the tyre pressures to its optimum temperature and its maximum, or it's not its maximum, it's sort of starting PSI really, and then throughout the lap it'll increase the PSI whilst the tyres get hotter and you start to generate more heat through the tyre and the PSI goes up. Well, previously on one of my runs, I think the starting PSI as I went over the start-finish line was about 26.4 in a lot of the front tyres, and I was losing so much time through sector 1 because the tyres weren't actually up to a good PSI operating pressure. So adjusting these made such a difference. So it's better to be right from the very off of the lap. You want the tyre pressures to be in a good window, and that's got to be somewhere around the 27 psi region. Any lower than that and you're going to start to, the car's going to slide a little bit. So definitely one to look out for future hot laps hot lap sessions, making sure that PSI is kicking in right from the very off at a good range. Obviously you get other the hot stints where it's really the second and third lap that you're using. So you could use the first lap to warm the tyres, and then it's the 2 laps after that really that are important. I think there's one at Barcelona in the McLaren. But for a hot lap session, it's just one flying lap, and you really want the tyres to be firing as soon as you start. So as you can see, I've got the cambers absolutely maxed out. Definitely a lot of rear grip needed for this circuit, because we're trying to use a lot of front end grip, negating the rear end really. The car really does slide around a lot. It's a very different car to drive than the Porsche and the Ferrari. It just feels very different to me. Not particularly one of my favourite cars that match my driving style, but I've enjoyed setting the car up for this one. It's been a sort of minefield of learning really. The caster obviously adds quite a lot of weight to the wheel again, which is why maybe I've dialed down the gain within the settings. It does add quite a bit of weight to the wheel. Traction control, again, I would set this at 4 to be honest. Another setting parameter that I've changed. I'm just going to go in there and just resave that, because I did try it on 3 and it seemed to lose time through the first sector, especially through the twisty section of the first sector. I don't know any of the names on this circuit, my bad on that one, but it just seemed to lose a bit of time. It was obviously scrubbing too much tyre, and the traction control wasn't particularly helping me through that section. So looking at these anti-roll bars, and the way that the car's set up, it's very much a front orientated grip issue. Obviously the front's still stiffer than the rear by a long way, but it just seems to understeer so much, this car, especially through the turning phase, high speed turning. There's so much understeer. But coming to the dampers, this is where it was just such a minefield. You use the curbs so much through this circuit, and getting the car to run over the curbs in a way that it's absorbing the curbs best is probably one of the trickiest things that I found in setting this car up. Trying to still use some of the bump and rebound to stop the understeer effects, but also trying to get it to fly over these curbs without causing too much disturbance to the way the car's performing. Usually this is how I would set up my dampers, with the ratio of almost double. So I started out at the front. I think I was something like this at the front. So I got double on everything. So 4 on the rebound is going to be 8 on the 4 on the bump is going to be 8 on the rebound, and I just increased that a tiny bit, and it was still understeering. So in the high speed section, generally if it's there's just too much roll at the front of the car, so I just tried to sort of stiffen that up a little bit, and the sweet spot really was just 6.9. And I don't know, we still don't have the option to see any of the detail that Motec offers on console. So I really do hope that they're doing something towards UDP connectivity, really, so that we can at least have, usually I'd have a tablet just positioned down here so that we can see some of the data from games. Especially Project Cars 2 was great to see so much more data, especially around lap times. Obviously you could use RS Dash, you could use Crew Chief, all these other things. I really do hope the people developing Assetto Corsa Competizione, you do bring that to the table for console, especially for the next generation consoles, where you've got that extra processing power. It would be just such a godsend, really. Moving to the aerodynamics, obviously the ride height plays a massive role, I think, in how this car runs over the curbs, and something that I think I've covered in Zolder, because you use the curbs again so much through the midsection at Zolder. Increasing the ride height on the car just makes a massive difference as to how much you can attack the curbs. Alright, it doesn't help for the rest of the lap, but there's so much time gained by running the curbs. It really does pay dividends to set the car higher so it will handle the curbs better, and we'll have a look at that as we attack this circuit. So the ride height really is set to try and help using the curbs more than anything else. So let's go out and have a little drive around the circuit, and I'll try and point you in a few directions for how to attack the circuit, and I'll show my lap at the end. I'll show, I did record a few replay versions, different seating positions as well, for those that prefer seeing the steering wheel. Although I do think that when you watch the replay back, I'll show the full lap and you'll see where I'm braking. I don't think the replay shows exactly when I'm braking properly. It seems to always look as if it goes past my braking point before it is actually braking. So I'll show the proper lap, obviously, which doesn't have the steering wheel on screen, but I'll also show that with the steering wheel, so you can sort of see the inputs that I'm putting through the wheel. Green light, go, go, go. So as you can see, I do like having the MFD up on the left hand side there, so you can see what's happening, and you can see the tyres are pretty cold at the minute. I'll just turn that down so I can think. I think I will actually just change the camera position for this, so just bear with me, guys. So here we are again then. So I just wanted to see if I could get you in the driving seat to see exactly what I'm seeing. So here we go. So I'll just try that again, just in case. I think the screen was a little bit wasn't changing the brightness, so let's have another run. So just if you can see the wheel as I'm changing from traction control 1 to 4, really just hold out in that 5th gear. Try and get this last corner. Not the best exit. Still a respectable lap. Slightly better exit, still a bit scruffy though. Just running wide through there. Obviously on for a 141 lap. So you can see there's so much in this setup. It does feel fairly consistent. just a bit late. Oops. It's just a bit late shifting down to second there. Good change of direction. Does feel pretty stable. Obviously just far too early turning in. But you can soon pass an hour by just having to go at this special event, you really can. Usually you'd be changing gear, but I really like to just hold on to that gear. Such a fine line. And then just disengage the traction control a little bit too early then. There's a little trick really, just to use that traction control rather than feathering it in with your foot. Just a little press of a button really. Last run. Just not enough turning. Keep saying last run till they get a good one. That's the usual way. Still not the best first sector we've had. Make or break. So almost equaling my personal best there. Yeah, well I think I'm just going to leave it there guys. I think we're going to end up having a number of these videos where it's just me doing lap after lap after lap and not quite getting anywhere. So hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Please do like and subscribe to the channel, and if you've got any comments please do leave them in the description. I'd love to help everyone. It looks like a lot of people are helping each other out, which is always great to see. So yeah, please do keep coming back to the channel. Hopefully more and more content to come, especially as we get towards the end of February. But yeah, Ciao for now.